I call the June 6, 2016 regular council meeting to order. Flag salute. John, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Silent roll call has been taken and a quorum is present.
Okay, the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the May 2nd, 2016 regular council meeting?
So move.
Second.
Jan and John. Discussion? All those in favor? None opposed. 6-0. Petitions, communications, citizens' requests. At this time, is there anyone from the audience that would like to discuss an item that is not on the agenda? If so, please come forward and state your name and address. Okay, moving on to reports. Council President, I do not have anything. Actually, I did want to say about the Memorial Day Parade. I know Bill was in attendance. Chief Wilcox was there. There's some other department heads, Steve O'Malley, Rulo, Travis. So a bunch of you guys helped out. Really appreciate that. My understanding, it was very well attended.
Yes. Nice parade.
For a rainy day.
For a rainy day. The parade was very long, I heard. Very nice job. So thank you to all of you. Appreciate that. Standing committees. City councilors. City attorney. Special committees. And city manager.
Just two quick items. I passed out again spreadsheet here tonight on the MRC proposal, PERC proposal, and Norwich Walk that you'll see in there. The only thing that's been added to that, you'll see a footnote on the first page of EcoMaine and what their contract price would be. On the first year, it should be $70 per ton, but that doesn't include a trucking cost down to them, which would be about $25 a ton, so it'd be $95. Right. So they'd be higher than the PERC proposal would be in here. Still working with Herman. We've got a couple issues that we're getting back to PERC on their contract, just to solidify some questions on where they'd haul waste if they if the PERC plant had to shut down. Should have that back hopefully in about a week and a half, and I can bring that back to you for the June 20th meeting so we can have a vote.
Yeah, that's the meeting that we're going to decide, correct?
Yes.
And it's actually an official vote that we need to do?
Yep.
Okay.
We should have that hopefully by then. If not, we could wait until the first meeting or second meeting in July, but hopefully we should have that so we can move that forward.
I mean, the way things are shaping up, money-wise, fee-wise, it looks like PERC's right there.
When you use the tipping fees, you know, that we'll get back to offset the cost of those, you're going to be at an existing facility at the same price.
We're not going to miss a beat, basically, like, just keep going. Okay. Any questions on that one for Bill?
Somebody said that your experts had enough signed up to make it a go. Is that right?
For the
Fiberite?
For the MRC Fiberite project. That's last I knew they were around 88,000 tons of actually committed by towns that have voted. What I understood was they needed 100,000 tons to be able to get their financing. Now, some of those towns haven't voted yet. Some of them say they're going to go to them. They haven't voted. Some have voted but still haven't signed the Fiberite contract yet. So I don't know what that means if you voted but you haven't signed the contract. So I'm not sure, even though it's stated that there's 88,000 tons committed, some of the towns that voted for it still haven't signed the contract.
And I thought, I don't know if I read it or heard it, that whether it's DEP or EPA, that there was still some issues out there that haven't been finalized as far as that yet. I forget which one it was I'd heard.
There's, you know, there's still a lot of issues out there, I think, that needs clarification on the Fiberite project.
And another, like, we haven't voted, is that Hamden or Herman that hasn't voted either?
Herman hasn't.
Herman.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be some just waiting to see what the two of us do before they decide to sign things.
Should get clarification back in the next week and a half. As soon as I get that back, I can send that revised contract stuff so you can see it. And if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Okay.
The only other thing is the Jefferson Street school project. I have a meeting. EMDC received $400,000 in assessment grant money for cleanup, as we did. And there's some question on who can use that money for what. I have a meeting with Ransom tomorrow to find out if we can. I don't believe we identified that project specifically with our money, but I've got a meeting with Nick Sabatine tomorrow to find out if we can use some of those funds to get that going, so we can just get that done using those assessment funds.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Any questions for Bill? Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda. New business items number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Counselor Roach.
Resolve, the Old Town City Council hereby approves the suggested motions under new business items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as presented. Number 1, city hereby accepts criminal forfeiture monies in the amount of $1,880 in the case of State of Maine versus Eliza Parker. City Council accepts an after-deadline redemption on foreclosed property for Don Engel, 85 Beasley Street, for 2016 taxes, $799.86, and 2013 to present sewer fees, $1,073.24, plus late fees and redemption fee totaling $2,023.10. Old Town City Council hereby approves application from the Old Town Riverfest Committee for a major event permit to be held at Riverfront Park on September 23rd and 24th, 2016. Old Town City Council hereby approves application from City Jennings, the director of the Old Town Library, for major special events for the summer concert series. Old Town City Council hereby authorizes the finance director to create a revenue account, number R0424, Airport Hangar Rentals. Old Town City Council hereby accepts a bid from Bryant Construction in the amount of $17,583 plus 12% contingency of $2,109.96 to replace 10 windows. And number 7, Old Town City Council hereby accepts a safety enhancement grant in the amount of $1,713.33 from Maine Municipal Association.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Carol, discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? None opposed. All right, we will move on to public hearings and second reading of ordinances. EJ, will you take this number 1, 2, and okay. Item number 1 on the public hearings and first readings. City Council will conduct a public hearing on the proposed FY 2016-2017 municipal, county, and school budget. The proposed budget calls for city expenditures of $9,465,100, Penobscot County taxes of $624,980, and RSU number 34 expenditures of $5,685,052 for a total city, county, and RSU number 34 budget of $15,775,132 with total city revenue of $5,146,340 and anticipated transfers from reserve accounts and fund balance of $959,981 for a net property tax requirement of $968,811. What'd I say? I'm sorry, $9,688,811. Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Okay, so Bill passed out, I think we have 2 sheets in front of us, correct, Bill?
Right. What I wanted to do was And I'll try to speak up here because my voice is horrible tonight. But the first mill rate calculation that you see in here is just showing everything on the left-hand side of the tax rate calculation to show where that came in at for a percentage increase, which was 4.8%. The second sheet that I handed out tonight, in the middle column, shows you all the adjustments that were done to that since we met in the 2 meetings in May.
This is the colored one we're talking
Right.
about.
So when you look, you'll see revenue adjustments in there. So airport projects, that starts at the top, we know we're going to get reimbursed for the improvements that we're going to do at the airport of the 66,500. Miles went back, looked at motor vehicle excise tax. He believes there's possibly another $40,000 in that line that we could receive. So those are revenue adjustments since the last time that we met. Cuts that we had to that are appropriation adjustments. When you get down through here and look at that, in finance, we talked about outsourcing payroll. We took that out. It's a $15,000 cut. Looked at the IT line. In going through and looking at that, some of the changes that we've made in the voice over IP lines and getting rid of a couple of servers, and looking at last year's contract versus this year's contract, I believe we can cut that $11,000 out of there and be okay in our IT account. Looking at PD and going down through these cuts, I tried to look at things that weren't necessarily going to impact current operations. Removed the dog out of that line. The dog had been retired this year. That's one of the things they wanted to reinstate. I took that back out. That was a $10,000 cut. We had gravel roads in specifically to do some more work to those. John had some materials left over for this year, which he's applied about as much as he can. We were going to do it a little bit more extensively. I think you'll find people are pretty satisfied with the level that the roads are in right now. He wanted to do a lot more to them, and certainly could justify doing that. But that was a line that we wanted to take out, so that was $46,000 we cut. We had an evaluation on the brook pipe of $12,000. I took that out of the account. There's actually been $38,000 sitting in that brook pipe account for a number of years. So if you want to do the evaluation, we can certainly go ahead with that. That would have been beyond that current $38,000. Another project in the capital line revaluation out of assessing, that was $10,000. We took that out. We're going to look at energy projects in the city as a whole. I cut that project out of that. It was $10,000. Municipal buildings, we'd increased that account this year. I put it back at what we've traditionally raised, which is about $75,000. So I took that $15,000 out of that account. We had a part-time person that's been carried. That's been used for smaller projects out of code enforcement. We moved that $2,900 out of there. And building reserve, again, took out $5,000 out of that account, which reduced it back to what it's been in the past several years. And on the municipal building reserve accounts, those have been increased just on the fact of how much over the last several years we've seen in repairs. But I reduced them back to what they've been in the past 3 to 4 years, every year that we've raised. When you go down through the through that line, you see that capital equipment reserve heavy account. It's kind of a tan color in there. And you look over on the right-hand side of the sheet under capital items not in the budget. Those ones that are in the tan is what makes up that 384. So that's an ambulance, one ambulance, one police cruiser, a plow truck, and a cemetery truck. You can see below that We had an extra cemetery truck that was in there. We had an excavator that was in there for cemeteries that was taken out. When you drop down into the next box, into the reserve transfers and bonding on TIF dollars, we funded the economic development budget out of that, $84,320.
This is the Stillwater TIF thing we asked you to do?
Correct. Yep. $84,320. The sidewalks that are within that district are $42,000 that we could fund in that. We had stormwater that was in there that we funded $10,000 out of. Portion of my salary. I'm on the Economic Development Committee, and I spend a lot of time in there. So took $10,000 of the TIF to fund my salary. That's in the budget. I don't get an extra $10,000. So that's to fund my current salary portion of it. And then the road bond. And out of these TIF funds that are in here, we had to go back through with John Miles and I did, and asked him to go back through and look at every project that he's done on that $1 million bond, whether it was sidewalks, any improvements that he's done within the TIF district. So we had to put those numbers together to come up with that. So when you put the appropriation adjustments all together, reserve from transfers and bonding together, the valuation amount at $433 million, which accounts for all losses at the mill, that would bring you up at this point to a 4.8% tax increase, and that's city, school, and county all in.
So at the last, I think it was the finance committee meeting we had, we asked you to take $200,000 out of fund balance, use the Stillwater TIF money, correct?
Yep.
And then to go back and reduce the budget.
Right.
Which you did. It sounds like over $100,000 in the budget.
Right.
How long is the TIF? We could use that Stillwater TIF every year going forward, correct, for these things?
Correct. It's about $155,000 a year that.
So that could help offset this every year for how many years?
30 years.
30 years?
Yeah, it's a 30-year TIF. And there's some things that aren't captured in there because anything that comes onto the R.H. Foster lot
Yeah.
will be part of that TIF.
Right, which won't happen for a couple of years.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so Stillwater's 30 years. So on sudden and severe for next year, what is the what do you think we're going to get for that between the school and us?
Yeah, and looking at and this is just taking the current $13 million loss that main revenue is showing, which I'm not really satisfied with that. So Travis and I are going to have a discussion with them, but taking that lowest number that they said and plugging it into school funding formula and into municipal revenue sharing, it'd be about $120,000 to $130,000.
120 to 130. So that amount right there will help offset us starting in the hole for next year.
Right.
So it's
It'd be
probably like the
it'd be about $20,000 in municipal revenue sharing and $110,000 for general purpose aid.
Okay, so us taking $200,000 out of fund balance. This is going to help us next year to help offset that. In reality, instead of being $200,000 in the hole starting off, would be about $70,000 in the hole, when that kicks in. And that's at the low number. You're thinking we're going to get more out of it.
Yeah, and even if you stayed at the $13 million reduction, I mean, 98% of the rest of the municipalities in the state are going to go up. So that's taking that $13 million value and using it in the formula this year as it stands. I mean, they're going to get an increase in valuation. We're not going to get an increase in valuation. So I don't know what that number is. I mean, that's the lowest amount that we'll get.
Right, is the 130.
Higher than that.
Okay.
I just don't know how much.
Because I know every year that a few of us have sat on the council, we've always said how much money we borrow from fund balance or from reserves that's going to put us in the hole starting the next year. So that's what I'm just trying to wrap my head around. Right now, we're looking at, we'd really only be in the hole $70,000.
You'll get an extra at least 130 that will come in.
Because we can continue using the Stillwater TIF money for what you did this year.
Yep.
Is this 2 years worth of TIF money or one? Because at one point in time, we talked about using this year's and.
Good
next
question.
year's. Good.
Right, that would still leave about 50,000 left in there, in that account.
So we're using this year's and 2/3 of next year's.
Right. Yep.
Okay, that's a good question. So for us to get, Miles, you got your calculator? For us to go from a 4.8% increase down to 3%, I think with everything going on, with everything else going up, sewer and water and everything else, I know the council had said trying to stay around 3%. What would that, how much more would we have to reduce that to go from a 4.8 down to a 3%?
You give me a minute on that.
That's all right. Take your time. So Bill, on while he's doing that, so back to the on the it says library exterior repair 60,000, but we can pay for that out of capital, correct?
Yeah, and that,
I'm looking. I see it here, but I see it to the right that we can still do that out of capital.
Yeah, and it's not, Cindy and I have talked about that. I mean, we put that estimate in the budget based on Bob Thomas's estimate.
Right.
Is where that came from, but she's already got an estimate on painting, repairs of the front doors, doing the dental work repair up on the finish up around on the old section of the library, and those came in under $10,000.
Okay.
So to do everything that Bob suggested on there, I don't think that, he gave us a high estimate on that, and that would be phased in over time. So this is the first part of it. Second part, we'd probably look at the power washing of the masonry finish up on the top on the new section, but that'll get phased in. So that number is not going to be $60,000.
Okay. And then the other ones that aren't highlighted on the capital on the right hand side, those ones we would take out of capital to do, or no? That's what I'm just trying to make sure I understand the
The
sheet.
cemetery trucks?
Yes.
No.
So we would not do those.
No.
Okay.
You'd have to find another 170,000.
170,000 to get us down to 3%.
Even, yep.
And then, so then starting hypothetically, that'd be 170,000 plus another 70,000 because we get the sudden and severe, so that would put us in the hole to, was it 230,000 roughly? 240,000 roughly. And I mean, from now until the second reading, hopefully we have some information about some things that we have possibly happening that could help that out also. But that would take us down to 3%. Now saying that, this is just me. I haven't said this to anybody. To make up that kind of money, are there a couple other reserves out there we could take 100,000 out of fund balance, and a couple other reserves we could grab from to get like 60 or 70,000 that you know of?
Well, your reserves are listed on that sheet down in the bottom right-hand corner. There's some reserve accounts that I haven't seen used for a while. The Juniper Ridge landfill has about 35,000 in it, remaining in it.
Okay.
That's never been used. The community center reserve has 28,500 in it. I haven't seen that reserved account used for years.
So 30, almost, so if we round up 35 and 28.
That's 63.
And then if we took another 100,000 out of fund balance, that would get us very close to 3%. I think the question we have to ask ourselves, what are we willing to live with? As far as a percentage, I think 4.8 is too much for people to be able to afford, and especially with everything else going on.
One time we asked for projection sheet, you working on that? So I can go from those, I can't even see that.
And also I think with all of us too that we need to, over the next week and a half, get some information about certain things before we all really, I mean, that was my mentality going into this thing tonight, kind of approving it the way it is, but knowing we're not gonna make any final decision until the second reading, knowing that if we get some more information, that'll help us make the total
On
decision.
the two biggest things that I was looking at, I can save you and me time on that, I guess. Yeah, the gas to energy project would not come into effect till the following budget year.
Right.
It would be permitted, but we start construction.
This isn't June for
Right. And then the other project out on that lot wouldn't start until about then either. They'd both come online the year after next, not next year's budget. Either one of those.
Like they're gonna do the permitting next year and then they would do it the following year. So, that being said, we're looking at in the hole about starting in the hole next year, $240,000. That's what we're talking about.
Plus the natural increases that
Correct.
are already voted in for salaries.
Correct. Yep. So this is just the first reading, at least we're getting all the information to take it in. I just don't, having talking with Bill numerous times, I just don't see, trying to send him back to reduce the budget anymore. You're at a point now where we've nickel and dimed everything. They're talking services at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that we have out there, that possibly could save money, and I don't know, we're still working on the health care side of things.
But that wouldn't even happen. Almost seemed like you said that might not even happen till like January or
It wouldn't
something.
it'd be halfway through the year.
Halfway through the year.
Because you got people's deductibles and stuff that have already accumulated to this point.
Right.
So if you changed right now, they'd lose 6 months worth of deductibles they paid. It could be as much as $50,000, could be, which no matter what's decided in all this, I plan on pursuing that and see if I can
Right.
do that or not, like we did before. It's not nearly as much as it was the first time that we changed, but.
So I guess my question to the council is, where are we? Are we satisfied at 4.8? Are we thinking about getting it down as close to 3 as we can and maybe looking at those options I suggested, plus hearing hopefully some information here over the next week and a half that will help us out with that? What's everybody thinking? It is gonna, like I said, it is gonna start us in the hole next year, but I think 4.8 is still high. People understand there's gonna be a tax increase due to what happened with the mill, but I think we need to help reduce it as much as we can. Comments?
As far as I'm concerned, at this point in time, we need to wait and see what happens.
Right.
If nothing happens anywhere, we can't stand this budget in my mind. It doesn't make sense to me to take $300,000 for the next 5 years, and then have zero fund balance left, and then say, oh
What
man,
happened?
Right.
should have done something.
Right.
If there's no hope in the future, outside of those two projects, which isn't gonna make up wages next year, we're in trouble.
And I think we went down this road before when the rec department decided to go privatize, or Bill had talked to rec and said that was the way to go. I think we're at that point, if you're right, if there are no other opportunities, at least by doing it this way, you might give enough time to think about how to adjust it, because there's only so many departments left. And you're really talking about getting rid of services at that point. Police, fire, public works, the airport, which is always a sticky one when it has FAA money in it anyways, and then the library. So I think that people really, if there are no other opportunities outside, like you say, those two, the option I'm throwing out will at least give everybody time to think it through clearly instead of in 2 weeks.
When do we think we might know something? Would it be
before the next reading, before the last reading?
So should we schedule
We don't have to pass this budget.
no,
That's
Right.
correct. We can hold off.
so we could,
I mean,
yeah,
I mentioned to Bill the other night, after we have an executive session tonight, and then going forward, we might end up having a council meeting next week, depending what happens, which would help us out for the second reading. If not, then correct.
then move
We
this.
can push it off. You can't be here anyways at the second reading, correct?
Correct. I believe in the 15th,
When are you back?
July 1st.
Okay.
Well, so if we
Okay.
move the second reading, you would be back.
Yes, the first meeting of the month,
Yeah.
I would be back.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work as far as, I'm looking at you, as far as, I mean, it's all set up to read and it already says it's scheduled as far as that. Can we go ahead with what we have proposed, and if we have to change it for some reason, we do so, we would have the meeting and postpone it or table it anyways? Instead of messing around with the motion the way it is, I just soon read it the way it is. And then if we showed up for the second reading, but we weren't prepared yet, we could table it at that point, correct? Table the second reading?
You could, and I'm gonna look to Eric on that, because it was my understanding, after June 30, you would have to appropriate a temporary appropriations resolution.
I think we've done that
Because you
before. We have done that, correct?
has-
Yes.
It has happened before, but.
Right. But at least we could read it the way it is tonight and then have our, come to that meeting, and then if need be, we could table it until a further date.
Yes, the charter says 2 readings, and that's basically a notice requirement, is to make sure that everybody concerned has ample notice of the budget. That doesn't mean that you have to vote on it immediately after the second reading, so long as you still have time before the budget.
Okay.
And if you don't, as Patty mentioned, you do the temporary appropriation.
Okay. So I would think then maybe we should just read it the way it is tonight, presented, and then we'll go from there.
Usually, if you're gonna do it, amend it, you usually do it
At the second one anyways, right. Okay.
Could decide if we need a meeting in between.
That's
too.
right, yes, yes. Any other questions from the council? If not, I'm going to open it up to the public if they have any questions. Anybody from the public would like to comment or ask any questions on this budget?
Sure wish you all could speak into the microphone more. It's very hard to hear you.
You can't hear us?
Now I can.
Okay.
90% of it I can.
Okay.
But the microphones, why don't we use them?
I almost think there's still issues too with some of them. Some are more clearer than others. No other comments about the budget? Okay. Close the public hearing. The Old Town City Council will consider scheduling a second reading for final approval on the proposed FY 2016-2017 municipal, county, and school budget. Councilor Roach.
Resolve, the Old Town City Council hereby approves scheduling a second reading for final approval for June 20th, 2016 on the proposed fiscal year 2016-2017 municipal, county, and school budget. The proposed budget calls for city expenditures of $9,465,100, Penobscot County taxes of $624,980, and RSU number 34 expenditures of $5,685,052 for a total city, county, and school budget of $15,775,132, with total city revenue of $5,146,340 and anticipated transfers from reserve accounts and fund balance of $959,981 for a net property tax requirement of $9,668,811.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Jan, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed. Okay, item number 2, the Old Town City Council will conduct a public hearing on a proposed FY 2016-2017 pollution control budget containing gross appropriations of $1,877,778, user fee revenue of $768,200, debt redemption of $619,735, anticipated transfers from reserve accounts of $419,716, a net appropriation from fund balance of $70,127. Open the public hearing.
I think probably the two biggest changes that you're going to see in that budget. First one would be under account 8,292, and those are basically the loans that are taken out on the pump station projects that they're doing.
Is that what isn't that coming up, what we're gonna read next or after? Or those, is that different, what we're gonna read on number 4?
Well, you can talk about it, but it's part of the budget.
Because that's what we're doing tonight, right, on number 4 and 5? Doing something for issuance of bonds and notes?
Yep.
So that's what that's what the,
That's one of the biggest changes you'll see in Dave's budget that's in there. Is funding those loan amounts on the pump station projects.
and that's what the 5% increase is to help cover that?
Yes. Yep, on the rate increase.
Rate increase for this year and I guess next year to.
Part of that is, and when Wright Pierce did their rate structure and looked at it, there hasn't been a rate increase in Old Town since 2003. It's been 13 years. And so you're getting to a point where the plant's starting to run into a deficit here.
Right.
So you'll see a 5% request. I mean, the way that calculation came out, there's a 15% deficit in their rates right now. So you're going to see a 5% this year. You're going to come back for 5% next year. You're going to come back for 5% the year after. They have to have.
Any questions on this? No? Anybody from the audience? Any questions on this item? Okay, close the public hearing. The Old Town City Council will consider scheduling a second reading for final approval on the proposed FY 2016-2017 pollution control budget. Councilor May.
Resolve the Old Town City Council hereby approves scheduling a second reading for final approval for June 20, 2016 on the proposed FY gross appropriations of $1,877,778, user fee revenue of $768,200, debt redemption of $619,716, and anticipated transfers from reserve accounts of $419,716, with a net appropriation to fund balance of $70,127.
Okay, is there a second? Jan, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? 7-0. Item number 3, the City Council will conduct a public hearing on the updated 2016 comprehensive plan. The updated 2016 comprehensive plan was reviewed and unanimously approved and recommended for adoption by the Old Town City Council, by the Old Town Planning Board at their May 17, 2016 meeting. Open the public hearing. I believe we have a very brief, short presentation.
I'll work on it.
Brief, short.
Brief, short.
I want to say that twice, just so they,
I heard you.
Oh, and I need the mic, right?
How did graduation go?
Very well. Very well. How many graduated?
14. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Most of them going to Old Town.
Really?
Nice.
Good.
3 to BAPS and the rest Old Town.
That's great.
Really? So, oh, wow, I
Nice.
know.
David, do you want to do an introduction, please, real quick?
Dave Russell, code officer.
Oh.
This is Kat Bodwin, the consultant that you all hired, who's done tireless work on this, and I truly appreciate all she's done for us. A lot of night meetings, a lot of roundtable discussions, a lot of effort by city staff to get her information, and just happy that this is who we picked to do our comp plan with us.
Fantastic.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Thank you for that nice introduction. He took all the thunder because I wanted to say thank you to all of you. It's been a pleasure working with the staff and the members of the community who participated in this project for the past year and several months. I have a bit of a cold, so I sound a little off, and I apologize for that, and hopefully I won't end up in a coughing fit, but if that'll help the presentation go quicker in the long run. I do have 20 slides, but they're gonna go fast. And before I even begin, I want to say that what you were handed out earlier this evening, Chapter 1 of the Comprehensive Plan, is essentially, not exactly, but essentially the same document that you saw several months ago. The changes happened because the state's review ended up in 3 letters from state agencies that asked for clarification, updating of data, and correcting some of the references that we made. So it was really housekeeping kind of edits that they asked us to make. In addition, the planning board held a workshop, and in a couple of instances where the plan was recommending that densities in certain zones be increased, the planning board got a little gun shy and said, well, maybe we ought to, cut that back a little bit. So there were a few changes from the planning board as well, but they were all consistent with the concept of what you've already seen. So that's the document that's before you. You have only Chapter 1 in front of you. There are 11 chapters, as you know, plus an appendix, over 200 some odd pages. But really the most important part of this document is Chapter 1. That's where all of the policies, all of the strategies are included. And that's really the guidepost for you for the next 20 years. So, it's going to be very tempting with, now that we've spent this 15 or so months working on this, it's very tempting for a lot of municipalities to say, oh my God, this is just overwhelming. There's over 100 strategies in it. How can we possibly deal with all of that? Well, number one, you have 20 years, right? So you just take it bite by bite. And number two, there's a good number of them that are in there as a way of taking credit for what you're already doing. So don't worry about those. And I've got a couple of slides at the end of this that will kind of frame what I think you should be looking at in the next couple of years. So let me just kind of scroll through these. And if people cannot hear me, it makes a difference, doesn't it? How close I am. All right. Yes, I can. Oh, good. Thank you. Let's see. That's a little better. Okay, so the purpose tonight is to hear public comment, so you really don't want to spend too much time listening to me, and to seek City Council approval on the plan. Over the past year, we organized, we gathered and analyzed data, created a vision, turned that vision into a real story, included that in the plan, and then we have goals, policies, actions, all compiled in Chapter 1. The vision, I'm not going to go through all of these words, but essentially this sets the stage for the kind of community that you want to be, that you envision yourself to be today, but you've got to aspire and you've got to make some changes, and you clearly have some challenges to deal with, but you've already got some really good bones. So I'm not going to read these, but you can look at them in the plan. As far as the goals, policies, and actions go, all of the goals are the same as they were in 1995 because they mirror what the state goals are. And that's how you get the check mark from the state as well. Many policies were maintained. Some of the ones that were already in the 1995 plan were maintained. Others were expanded, and then we've added some new ones as well. As I said, many of the actions or strategies are continue to do what you're doing, especially around the natural resource protection type stuff. That's already in great shape. And so the focus on the remaining slides will be on the goals and the policies only. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time reading these, but economic goal, we highlighted the major things as we heard them from your economic development director, your LLC, and the conversations that we had with the community members. So, you know, we're talking about encouraging small business, continuing the development of the business parks, Stillwater Avenue, downtown revitalization, and expanding ecotourism. For housing, we're suggesting that that be added to the economic development role because they really do go hand in hand. And to look, you've already been working on the redevelopment of abandoned homes and promoting owner occupancy of multifamily dwellings, promoting neighborhood-style student housing as opposed to the very large complexes that a community just down the way here has recently accomplished. In terms of cultural and recreational goals and policies, big support for the library. Continuing to provide a broad range of recreational and cultural opportunities, providing access to public and open space, and protecting the historic and archaeological resources. Public facilities and services, you've got a great team here working for you, and they're doing all that they can to efficiently meet the identified public facilities and meet the needs of the public facilities and services. And so we've highlighted that in the plan. Provide for public facilities and services so they promote and support growth in designated areas. Natural resources, as I said, this is the area of the plan that you've got, you know, got some A pluses in, because your ordinances are already protecting wetlands, protecting from flood damage, protecting the aquifer, the unique wildlife resources, and, you know, protecting agricultural and forest lands in the rural areas that are highly productive and can help with the future. Transportation goal, you know, prioritizing the needs, not just locally, but regionally. So participating with BACs is a very important policy that we've identified. And taking care of the state aid network, state and state aid network is an important aspect too, because that's your lifeline for your economics in this community. There's a new policy that suggests adopting a complete streets policy, making sure that the main lines that are coming through the community provide for all transportation modes, walking, bicycling, bus, as well as vehicles and trucks. And preserving the system, obviously protecting and enhancing, promoting the rail and aviation systems. This is the future land use map. Everything in brown is rural and essentially is the same as it was before, with a couple of exceptions. Everything in yellow is growth, Marsh Island, essentially. So that's identified as the growth area for the next 20 years, and I think it was in the 1995 plan as well. And then, though, the planning board and the planning committee decided to create a transition zone, essentially from the interstate inward or easterly toward Marsh Island. So you see a T1 and a T2, and those areas, when Marsh Island needs to further expand and become, you know, expand into other parts of the city, that's the natural area to grow because it's within the confines of the interstate. So then the future land use plan really has a section that talks about, that is in general, what the future land use ought to be looking like. And one of the main components is to create a performance standards manual, which would really help with people who are applying for permits. They understand what, they're not having to go in 5 or 6 different places to look for what standards apply. They can simply go to one manual. There's some scenic view protection standards that are promoted in this plan. The rural area, retaining the R3 and R3A in the rural area, but considering impact fees. And I know the planning board is looking at that and saying, you know, that's going to be down the road. If there are going to be any impact fees, you know, that would be something that we just kind of have to wait and see whether or not that makes sense. One of the probably highest priorities is to redesignate the R4 at the Pushaw Lake and call it something different. Call it R6, call it the Lakeside Residential Zone, so that when property owners who now live there go to the bank to refinance or to transfer their properties, it's not looked at as seasonal zoning. It's year-round lakeside protection. So that would take care of that issue. And then the landfill area, retain that zone, but in light of the potential transfer of land from Juniper Ridge to the city, I'm not sure where that's at, but the idea is to make sure that that zone allows for recreational use on that land. Again, there's some discussion about what to do with ordinances in terms of the transition area, and everything in the growth areas for Marsh Island was about increasing the density, making it easier to build more, making it easier for development to occur. There's some changes in the industrial areas, replacing the L1 at Expera along the river and create a new redevelopment zone there. In the energy park, make sure that cogeneration is allowed, and redesignate the I-2 zone that is in downtown today because of Old Town Canoe, redesignate that as part of the downtown mixed-use area, so that you're now separating your industrial zones from your downtown. And in the growth areas and the mixed-use areas, really increase the density in the R5. Maybe a part of R1 in Stillwater Village could be mixed use and higher density. Redefine your C1 district as your downtown district to make sure that it incorporates your downtown plan that was done by another consultant just before we started this process, so that now the two can come together. And as much as possible, reduce the number of conditional use and special exception permits, again, to make it easier for people to develop and make it easier for the planning board to administer. And then work with the school district on school siting issues in the event that future schools are needed. Capital investment and planning. This is an area that you're all well aware of. You've had fund reserve accounts for a while, but this is a suggested way of thinking about prioritizing your capital investments. Those that protect life safety, that sustain the system, therefore increasing its capacity and its performance, and certainly to meet compliance directives. Those ought to be your top priorities. Then next, any capital investments that grow your revenues, or that increase operational output and productivity. So those are considerations. And then important ones would be those that are, they're important to have but can be deferred. That would be your third priority. There's a section in the plan that talks about what should be in the capital investment plan, that it should be a 10-year plan, that from that you pull out annual capital plans, use reserve accounts as you have been, but maybe dedicate them to specific purchases that you're looking to make, using bonds for big investments, meaning things that have at least a 20-year or greater lifespan, or that are that cost at least $500,000. And we've already talked about the school one. Regional coordination, that's another important consideration in the state's package. They want to make sure that you're working with your neighbors. So there are a list of strategies that are really just taking advantage, taking credit for the things, many things that you're already doing. So in short, the plan promotes making development parameters clearer and easier for all, increases development opportunities where utilities and city services are located, and holds the line on development in rural areas. For the next 24 months, ordinance updates are key. That's what the state now says. We're happy. You did a great job on your plan. We've given you a check mark that says it's good, but now you need to adopt any changes to your ordinances within 2 years. And then the economic initiatives, I believe these are Ron's priorities anyway. And then finally, from a city administration perspective, a capital investment strategy, which you already have the guts, the bones for. So that is, in short, the plan. And thank you for being patient with this little presentation.
Thank you. Any questions, Kat, at this point? On behalf of the council, Kat, I want to thank you very much for everything you've done. And thank you for the department heads and staff also for helping out. So we still got a bunch of work in front of us we got to do, though.
Yes.
Once this is adopted, we start our 20-year cycle.
20-year cycle.
Plenty to do.
Great. Any questions from the council on this? Any questions from the audience?
Chairman, could you recess for like 2 minutes so I can help her break this down?
Oh, sure. You want us to take a break, or can we can keep going? No, we're fine. We're fine. Thank you. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. City Council consider scheduling second reading for final approval and adoption of the 2016 Comprehensive Plan. Councilor Klitsch.
Resolved, excuse me, the City of Old Town Council hereby schedules a second reading for June 20th, 2016 on final approval and adoption of the 2016 Comprehensive Plan.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Carol, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? Moving on to item number 4. The Old Town City Council conduct a first reading of an order pertaining to the issuance of bonds and notes in the amounts not to exceed $1,650,000 for the purpose of financing all or a portion of the cost of any or all acquisition, design, construction, rehabilitation, upgrading, and equipping of sewer pump station facilities in the city and other improvements functionally related and subordinate to the foregoing. Open the public hearing. Bill, do you want anything on this?
Yeah, basically, it's, as it says, it's to move forward funding for our pump stations that are, I believe, 40 years old, Dave?
40 years old.
40 years old.
Wow.
So they're due to be replaced. This will also be a safety measure also, because they'll be above ground now, so people won't have to get down into pits.
Okay. And once again, this is part of that whole 5% increase to offset this.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody from the audience? Any questions on this? Close the public hearing. City Council considers scheduling the second reading for final approval of an order pertaining to the issuance of bonds and notes in amounts not to exceed $1,650,000. Councilor May.
Resolved, the Old Town City Council hereby schedules a second reading on June 20, 2016 for final approval of an order pertaining to the issuance of bonds and notes in amounts not to exceed $1,650,000 for the purpose of financing all or a portion of the cost of any or all acquisition, design, construction, rehabilitation, upgrading, and equipping of sewer pump station facilities in the city and other improvements functionally related and subordinate to the foregoing.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Linda, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? Moving on to item number 5. The Old Town City Council will conduct a first reading of an order pertaining to the issuance of bonds and notes not to exceed $1,743,000 for the purpose of financing all or a portion of the cost of any of all acquisition, design, construction, rehabilitation, upgrading, and equipping of sewer facilities on and or near Stillwater Avenue and also on and or near Elm Street in the city, and other improvements functionally related and subordinate to the foregoing. Open the public hearing. Basically the same thing as...
It is, and part of that, and Miles can correct me if I'm wrong, but they had to, this had to be read this way because some of that money carried forward from the Stillwater project. And we were
Okay.
able to use that, part of those funds on the Elm Street projects. We had to reread this bond.
Someone did ask me if Elm Street was going to get done, and I asked Bill, and he said they got to do the sewer work first before they can do the road. Okay, any questions on this? Anybody from the audience? Close the public hearing. The City Council considers scheduling a second reading for final approval of an order pertaining to the issuance of bonds and notes in amounts not to exceed $1,743,000. Councilor Roach.
Resolve, the Old Town City Council hereby schedules a second reading on June 20th, 2016 for final approval of an order pertaining to the issuance of bonds and notes not to exceed $1,743,000 for the purpose of financing all or a portion of the cost of any or all acquisition, design, construction, rehabilitation, upgrading, and equipping of sewer facilities on, in, or near Stillwater Avenue, and also on, in, or near Elm Street in the city, and other improvements functionally related and subordinate to the foregoing.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Jan, discussion. All those in favor? None opposed? Okay, thank you. We're moving, no old business, moving on to new business. We are on item, where did we leave off on? Item number 8. City Council consider accepting a grant from the FAA in the amount of $82,350 to reimburse the city for expenses of installing a new airport rotating beacon for the airport. Councilor Peterson.
Resolved, the Old Town City Council hereby accepted the grant offer project number 3-23-0034-015-2016 in the amount of $82,350 for airport improvement and installation of a new airport rotating beacon. The City Council will further authorize the city manager to execute said grant agreement and authorizes the city attorney to sign a certificate of sponsor.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Carol, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed. Item number 9, the City Council consider granting an abatement to Xperia Specialty Solutions of taxes paid against all April 1st, 2014 Red Shield real estate and personal property assessments. Councilor McLeod.
Resolve, the Old Town City Council hereby grants an abatement to Xperia Specialty Solutions of taxes paid against all April 1st, 2014 Red Shield paid and appealed by Xperia Specialty Solutions real estate and personal property assessments in the following amounts. Total abatement value, $32,226,200. Total related tax paid, $643.63. Interest due, $21,036, for a total abatement of $664,099.
Can I have a second on that? Jim, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed. Okay, one last item. Can I have a motion to take an item up that is not on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Linda, John, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Last item, the City Council consider going in executive session for the purpose of discussing an economic development issue relating to the Xperia Mill. Councilor May.
Resolved, the Old Town City Council hereby approves going into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title 405, Section 6C, for the purpose of discussing an economic development issue relating to the Xperia Mill.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
EJ, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? And it is 8:04.